Hi, and welcome to San Lando Soundwave. I'm Tina Phillips, and this is Week 12, Day 60. And today our reading is from Ephesians chapter 2, verses 4 through 10. As for you, you were dead in your transgressions and sins, in which you used to live when you followed the ways of this world and of the ruler of the kingdom of the air, the Spirit, who is now at work in those who are disobedient. All of us also lived among them at one time, gratifying the cravings of our sinful nature and following its desires and thoughts. Like the rest, we were by nature objects of wrath. But because of his great love for us, God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive with Christ, even when we were dead in transgressions. It is by grace you have been saved. And God raised us up with Christ and seated us with him in the heavenly realms in Christ Jesus, in order that in the coming ages he might show the incomparable riches of his grace, expressed in his kindness to us in Christ Jesus. For it is by grace you have been saved, through faith, and this is not from yourselves. It is the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. For we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. Now let's consider our 7 arrows, or 7 questions. What does this passage say? Are there any repetitive words or phrases? What did this passage mean to its original audience? What does this passage tell us about God? What does this passage tell us about man? What does this passage demand of me? How does this passage change the way I relate to people? And what does this passage prompt me to pray to God? Now let's look at the brief devotional about this passage on page 76 of our book, The 7 Arrows. The story of the nation of Israel is a story of God's grace. Nowhere along the way did the people deserve God's work on their behalf. They were sinful through and through, and the story of their slavery in Egypt is a picture of how great their sin actually was. They were trapped, weak, powerless, and dead. But God acted on their behalf and saved them for his glory. Like God's people in Egypt, all people are born dead in sin, enslaved to its power. And like the Israelites in Egypt, God's people are the recipients of his favor and kindness. In Ephesians 2 through 4, Paul shifts his focus away from the terrible state of the humanity with these 2 words, but God. All people would be doomed to face God's wrath were it not for God's grace to provide Jesus. But God, he acts in grace to save sinners, and all we have to do is place faith in his grace gift. It seems too simple to comprehend, but this is how God works. He loves to save sinners in such a way that only he gets the glory, both sinners enslaved in Egypt long ago and sinners enslaved to sin today. That's it for this week. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.